There were two paths I knew that would invariably lead to the city. The road, on the one hand, and on the other, the winding river Skyre, that flowed southeast from the city, through uninhabitable marshlands. The road was a straighter path, swifter and simpler to follow, but would almost certainly lead me to the same fate as that of the caravan. I glanced back towards it. Now that the fire was out and the smoke had died down, there were birds, big black crows and ravens, feasting on the remains of the dead. Others gathered in the tree, eyeing the bodies that still swung slightly in the breeze, in an effort to determine if they might be food or not. One blackbird, a little smaller than the others, seemed to be having a little trouble getting his share, as the birds were quite violent with one another. As I watched this small bird, it likewise turned its attention to me, flying up in the air and circling above my head. "Away! I'm not dead, you wretched thing!" "Not just yet, I'm not." No, the road was not an option. The road broke north and west, so I turned east, knowing that if I traveled long enough, I should surely reach the Skyre, and the marshland should provide me with some cover, at least. I felt horribly exposed out here on the road. "Caw!" crowed the bird, landing not far away on a rock formation. "Call yourself," I sneered. Seeming disappointed with my response, the bird once again took to the air and made his way back over to try his luck again with the caravan. On the one hand, I felt a little rotten, having left the dead in the grisly state I found them. A one-armed man with no shovel and with enemies real or imagined, lurking round every corner. What could I really do to help? I took some small comfort in my recollection of orc lore. The Vec orcs believe that crows and ravens are spirits that are sent to guide the souls of the lost and the dead by releasing them from the bonds of the flesh. What a gruesome thought. I wandered eastward, maybe for 3 hours, maybe for 4. The sky was dark and threatening. Behind me, an expanse of nothingness, peppered here and there with a rock or a shrub. Ahead, the soil beneath my feet no longer seemed stable. Dead trees protruded from the ground at odd angles. I judged they hadn't sprouted a leaf in years, and most were rotted, covered with moss or fungus, or both. I wondered if any of it was edible. I'd only found a bit of stale bread at the caravan, and that was a few hours gone now. I didn't know a great deal about fungus, but I knew that a lot of it was poisonous, so I decided not to chance it. The land here was dead and rotting, but surely that was a sign that I was entering the fenlands to the southeast of the city. If I turned north, I would eventually meet the river, and I could follow it home. Home. What a strange thing to think. The city wasn't my home. Indeed, I was without a home now. The city was just a place that seemed as though it might offer some safety. Maybe that's all a home really is. Somewhere to let your guard down. I sure as hell couldn't do that out here. I'd been wandering a long time, and through part of it, I felt as though those eyes were upon me again. The same feeling I'd gotten when I was still in the city. I didn't have any spyglass for distance, but I'd kept scanning the horizon, and had yet to see a soul. Now the dead trees were there to provide some kind of cover. I walked more slowly, keeping low to the ground. I felt eyes upon me, or eyes searching for me. It may have been paranoia, but then again, it may not have been. Or maybe in some way I was hoping to catch a glimpse of Arky, as I thought I had in the desert. But out here, amongst dead trees, it was just me and the softly humming swarms of gnats. I paced here. The footing was becoming treacherous. I still had no sign of the river, but there were pools and puddles and marshes and quagmires aplenty. As it grew darker, I wondered if I should stop for the night, but I found the way forward was not so dark after all. The fens themselves provided a kind of dull greenish light, and so I kept traveling as dusk set in. At length, the last of the sun's rays had gone beyond the horizon, and I was forced to stop. I chose an area with as many dead trees as I could find, and there was no other shelter. I hadn't found anything to eat, and my stomach was rumbling. My water skin was nearly finished. It was going to be a fun evening. I sat beneath the tree and began to think about everything that had happened, trying to make sense of it. Arky showing up in the slums, leading me on a chase, and then dropping me in some field. The elves in their masks, chasing me, and killing those I traveled with. Even the dwarves with their weird culture. It all jumbled together in my mind, adding up to, well, nothing. It all felt connected, but it was like a few pieces of the puzzle, and I was missing the rest. I was distracted from my train of thought by a softly glowing yellow light that didn't seem to be that far ahead of where I was. Had they found me? I fumbled for my dagger and crouched low to the ground, the light source growing dimmer, then brighter again, and then dimmer. It didn't seem to be moving so much as pulsing. I considered my options. If it was bounty hunters come for me, I didn't suppose I had much of a chance. But I'd seen them, and presumably they hadn't seen me yet. I saw no opportunity for escape, and so I determined that my best move was to try to use the element of surprise. Moving as slowly as I knew how, I began to move towards the source of the light. I circled around to the side, but found the way blocked by swamp. The light source, though still oscillating between bright and dim, did not seem to have moved. Could it really be my luck that my pursuers had gotten this far and just decided to set up camp? The idea itself was too ridiculous. Moving along the water's edge, I grew steadily closer to the light source. Nobody was there. The light source had shone brightly and then gone dim once again. Dagger drawn, I approached. There was no campsite, no bounty hunters on my trail. Nothing. And the dim source of the light seemed to be beneath the water at the edge of the marsh. Curiosity got the better of me, and I peered into the water. Deep down, deeper than I expected to be able to see, there was a soft glow. I wondered what it could be. The swampy water around it was slightly illuminated by it. I leaned in a little closer, and it seemed to me that the glowing was growing closer to me as well. It almost seemed to glitter and sparkle in the darkness. It was getting closer, rising to the surface. It passed several white branches, illuminating them on the way up towards me. It was getting brighter. Brighter still, it passed another white branch. But this branch had a strange, curved shape that was eerily familiar. And then the light passed a skull. I stumbled back from the swamp's edge, just as the light reached the surface, and popped. I was a fool. Instantly, I began to feel dizzy. I had heard of this kind of thing before. How had I not seen it for what it was? I stumbled backwards, trying to steady myself, and back away from the water's edge. Everything was going numb. I put a little distance between myself and the water, before my legs gave way. My eyes began to lose focus, and the world went dark. I dreamed a twisted dream, one of running and being chased, of giant orcs and laughing dwarfs and cruel elves. All the while, the ravens circled overhead, waiting for their chance to feast on my entrails, to lead my poor soul to the afterlife. I dreamed of hateful elves in black masks, tying me to a stone table and approaching me with a branding stick. I screamed at them, but all they would do was chant. Scarecrow, Scarecrow, Scarecrow. The elf in the mask looked down upon me. I could not tell where the mask ended and his face began. Maybe the mask was his face. Yet still, he chanted with that familiar musical voice. Scarecrow. The brand came down upon my cheek, and as it burned, I screamed. My eyes fluttered open. The sky was light, and I had a horrible burning sensation on my cheek. Something was moving on it. I raised my aching arm, to contend with whatever creature had taken hold of me. "Caw!" cried the creature, taking to the skies in a flurry of black feathers. It landed atop a nearby rotted tree and scrutinized me disparagingly. It was a raven, the same smaller one from the day before. I touched my hand to my cheek, and I came away dirty and bloody. The blasted bird had mistaken me for dead, and had decided to make a meal of me, starting with my wounded cheek. It was sure going to get infected now. Although remembering what had happened, I knew that I was lucky to be alive. Only seeing the skull beneath the water had saved me. Otherwise, I'd have taken the full brunt of the swamp gas, and likely have fallen into the water, like the previous victim had. Although I had never encountered it before, I had heard about flesh-eating algae that appeared as glowing lights in the water, preying on whatever beast or human was stupid enough to investigate. It was bad enough to be hunted, but in this moment it felt like the planet itself was looking to end me. But it hadn't succeeded. Not yet, anyway. I touched my cheek again. I didn't know a thing about medicine, but I knew that a wound like this, at the very least, needed a thorough washing if I didn't want to die from it. More likely, I needed a healer. But how far was I from the city? Not far in front of me, I saw a bubble pop out of the bog. I hadn't made it very far once the gas had hit me. I would have to be even more careful now in the daylight, where such gas bubbles didn't give themselves away by their glow. I wondered if I should try to recuperate a little longer before I tried to move. My muscles ached, perhaps from being passed out all night on an uncomfortable route, or perhaps from the gas. Leave me alone, you blasted thing! But as I shot my glare at it, I saw that the raven wasn't clawing at me anymore.
Follow our links below for more content and subscribe.